Hello, this is Chris Jansen. Welcome to the End Evil podcast. Hello. Welcome to the End Evil podcast. This is Chris. Evil is the destruction of freedom. That's a quote from the book, The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. And I always try to recommend that book because it's a quick, easy read. And it has a lot of fundamental principles that I like to share on this show. I feel like evil is become a prevalent force in the world we're in. And basically, it's different forms of stealing. And I've been working towards being an educator, a teacher of a better way to live for all of us, working towards a more positive, vibrant future for humans. I think it's time for us to step it up as human beings, and we can do better than the current system. And on that note, I wanted to tell you about something really exciting that's happened in my life recently. I made a new wonderful friend, and I'm going to bring my good friend Colby in right now. He's someone I met through autonomy, and we kind of hit it off and became fast friends. Welcome, Colby. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, hi, Chris. Thanks for those kind words. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I mean, you're just like an easy guy to talk to. And I think as soon as we first met on a meeting, we're like, oh, I like this guy, like, and it's an interesting thing how, when you're a conscious, awake human being and you meet other conscious, awake human beings that have a certain openness to them, it's like this really refreshing breath of air or cool water, to be able to just talk freely with someone and know they're not judging you and you're going to be able to vibe, if that makes sense,
Yeah, absolutely. I felt, I guess it's a sense of freedom, right? Freedom to communicate openly.
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't even thought of it putting it that way, but that's so true. And so I know Autonomy Season 11 is just gearing up to get going, if it hasn't started already. So, folks, if you're curious about Autonomy, I'll share the link along with this show. And or you can go on my website, endevil.life. And on any episode, there's always in the little sidebar a link to go check out Autonomy and what they offer. But it's a great way to network and find other like minds. And it's just one of many ways to reach out on the internet and meet people. And I feel like this whole technology that we have in front of us, even though I was an early rejecter of the World Wide Web, I didn't really want to get involved with it in my earlier years. I was actually at one point carrying a flip phone, purposefully got rid of one of the smarty phones, I like to call it, because I wanted to be, I didn't want to be that technologically connected. I saw it as materialism. But I've come a long way on that and come to recognize that this technology can be a huge aid in whatever our passion or purpose is. And so I know you're somebody who's very technologically well-versed, and I appreciate what you've been teaching me too, Colby. So maybe you could talk on technology a little bit.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I don't really feel like I'm that into technology. It's funny. I was kind of into computers and stuff like in high school, and in fact, I was in a class called oh man, I can't remember what it was, but we tech services. That's what it was, and this was like in the mid '90s. And we worked on the schools and on the computers in the school. But I don't know, at that time, like I had messed around a little bit with, I growing up in the 80s, I had an Atari computer, and I played around with programming a little bit in Atari Basic. And it just felt like it was so much work for what came out. I didn't really totally see the value. And when I got into school and was in technology, learning about I learned like HTML in high school, and we in that class we did the website for the high school. I was in Future Business Leaders of America, and so I ended up doing like the page for the school that was all about clubs and different organizations and whatnot. And so that was a cool experience. But I remember at one point we had these guys come in that had a business doing websites. They were professionals in the mid 90s, and they showed us and started telling us about JavaScript. And it kind of blew my freaking mind at the time. Like, this is, insane. This is amazing. But at the same time, it was seemed like a totally radically different language. I didn't really know that much about coding other than my experience at that time. And it seemed like this was a brand new emerging technology, and it's like, man, this is really complicated. Am I going to have to, how much time am I going to have to devote to this? And then that's like another couple of years, something else is going to come around that's going to replace it. It's just like, that doesn't sound fun. Like, that's too much time. And so I basically consciously just at that point in my life stopped pursuing learning about computers. But, that little bit has ended up carrying me a long way. It's really helped me professionally. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And, that's kind of brings me to what we've talked about as like the focus point of this talk, this podcast, is learning and teaching, and how we go about learning things. You brought up the term polymath, and I always think autodidact, self-learning.
Right.
And part of what the golden thing about our connection has been is that you have this extensive knowledge about drafting. And because I had a little bit of history and taking a couple classes, you've been able to kind of teach me from where I was at how to apply some of that in the business realm. And that's been a fantastic learning journey for me. And then meanwhile, you're working on your MCAD business. As you guys can see on his little lower third there, it's www.youtube.com at MCAD Productions. If you want to see some of the stuff that Colby and I have been putting together, we're starting to create like trainings and a course for people that want to learn the stuff that Colby knows, especially in the realm of CAD drafting with fire sprinkler systems. But, he knows a lot more than just that. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about your progression of learning this stuff and being able to apply it to support your family, because you have wife and kids and property, and you do all this on your own. You're not working for anybody but yourself right now, right?
Yeah. So yeah, at that time, in high school, I wanted to go to school actually. So I was also in drafting. And so I was like trying to decide at the time, when you're in high school, you think you have to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life. At least that's how they promote it, right? Like, you got to sign up for this lifetime loan that you're going to pay off, be indebted to but so I was like kind of like, okay, thinking about programming. But then I was also in the drafting program. They had a really actually pretty good drafting program in my high school back when they still did this kind of stuff. And so I was learning AutoCAD 10 on DOS, and I enjoyed that. So the other path I was thinking besides programming is maybe I would go to school for architecture. But you had to go to school for 6 years to get a degree, and then you have to apprentice for, I believe it's another 6 years before you can take the test, become an architect, and even think about making money. And I was kind of like in the, middle class, I guess, trap where my dad earned too much money for me to get like free money,
low income stuff.
Yeah, but we didn't really make enough money to pay for me going to school either. So it's like, it just didn't seem realistic, like there was any way. And honestly, it didn't seem like, thinking about that 12 years of schooling, for then you might have a chance to make money at that point. It didn't make any sense to me. So, I ended up, I went to community college, changed my major a bunch of times, couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. Finally ended up in the business management program. I was taking Spanish too, so as well. I mean, so I was like in the international business program, but I never finished my degree and ended up getting married and just having to get a job to survive. And I was working at the auto parts store in town, and this buddy of mine that was in my drafting classes, and I also went to this thing called Architecture Explorers, which is through the Boy Scouts in high school, and he was in my Architecture Explorers group. But he this was 2 years after I graduated. I was married at this point and just couldn't really go back to college at that point, just working at the auto parts store, trying to figure out life. And my buddy was coming in because he was fixing up his grandpa's farm truck. It was old 60 something Chevy truck. And his grandpa had an account at that auto parts store where I worked. So he started coming in on a regular basis and buying parts for his truck. And we just started, catching up and BSing. And then at some point he's like, "Hey, you want to come work for my stepdad? He has a fire sprinkler business. You do AutoCAD work there for like $10 an hour." And I think I was making like 7 something at the auto parts place. So I was like, hell yes, I want to. How fast can we start? So, I didn't have any idea what fire sprinklers were at that time. Just knew it was an opportunity to do something different that I, probably wouldn't have had that opportunity otherwise. So I was going to take advantage of it. And that started me on a long path, really. When I was working there, Bob Parker was the owner that trained me. And one of the things that he told me about pretty early on was like, "Hey, there's guys that do this contract and just, work from home or whatever, and work for several companies." And, he made it sound pretty good. And so I was pretty excited and probably more ambitious than he was ready for. And I think it was about year and a half in or so, I was like, "All right, I'm ready to go on contract. Let's do this." And he was kind of like regretting that he had ever told me about it. But I was, I was like, "Well, I'm ready. Let's do it." And he went ahead and let me do it. And we did about, I don't remember, a handful of jobs. First one he gave me, I remember it was a fire station in the Portland area. I think Mount Scott Fire Station, if anybody's familiar with Portland. I basically, he gave me the job and I just worked on it till it was done straight. And there was also like a lot of things that I had wanted to like improve with our model and stuff, template, our drafting system that we were doing, that I felt like I never had the time to do when I was working in the office, because they don't necessarily feel like that stuff's important to be done. And so I did all that and whipped this job out. It took me about 12 hours. I just worked on it straight through. And so delivered it to him the next day, and he was pretty impressed. And so I did a couple more jobs like that, same type of thing. And then so he was like, "Okay, look, I really need you in the office." He gave me, at the time, I don't remember what year this was, but I think I was like, was making like $25 an hour, to come back in the office, manage the office plus doing drawings. And so basically I started back in 99 originally, and construction industry, as you know, is up and down all the time. And eventually I got laid off from there and went to work for another sprinkler outfit. And actually before that, I went to work for a plumbing outfit, got some experience as a project manager. While I was working there, I worked on the side for a sprinkler company until they got busy enough to hire me full time. And just basically things like that over the years. I was just always interested in learning. So like in Oregon, they passed this thing, I believe it was in 2008, where like most of the country, there's a thing called NICET for fire sprinklers. And if you have a NICET stamp, that you can stamp sprinkler drawings, and that's all you need. But Oregon has never recognized NICET. When I first started out, I took NICET because it was kind of like one of the few paths for learning at that time, just like studying for the test, basically. But Oregon never recognized it. And so like it was either 2006 or 2008, the Oregon Engineers Board here lobbied for it to come under their jurisdiction. So anything over 4,000 square feet here now has to be stamped by a registered professional engineer in the state of Oregon. And so through that whole process, when we had to start doing that, I met a guy who I made good instant friends with, similar to how we did, is a structural engineer that my boss already knew. When we had to get stamped the first drawing, he's like, okay, well, I know this guy, we got to get this drawing stamped, so go to his office and meet with him. And the first time I met with him, we just like hit it off, like we were instantly friends. And had a lot of similar connections. He's a very hands-on engineer, has built, I think I was telling you, he's built a couple houses and stuff, which is unusual for structural engineers. Usually they don't, lift a hammer. And, and besides working for him, I mean, I've worked all other places like design, build contractors and whatnot, but also me and him had some opportunities. It didn't really end up being financially great, but I really learned a lot. We helped a guy that had a CNC cabinet shop. They were older machines, and they couldn't get them working anymore. The cabinet supply places were trying to sell them new software, cabinet vision software, which was like $45,000. And basically, because of like what I was talking about, my experience from knowing tech from high school, like I had an old computer that I've been running for a long time, that I've been running Windows XP on to run an old fire sprinkler calc program that won't run on new software. And basically all we had to do to get their CNC shop up and running was just get it working on these old Windows XP computers that everybody just said, oh, we don't know how to do that. But we just kept fiddling around with it till we got it to work, and we got the whole shop up and running, And anyway, that was a really interesting experience. We ended up not getting paid really anything like we were supposed to, the deal that was supposed to happen, but it was just like a real confidence building experience, just going through that.
And that's actually right on our topic too, because it's a perfect kind of like allegory for, like you're saying, the people are saying like, well, that's outdated software. We don't know how to do it. It can't connect.
Right.
It just died right there. And, maybe even if that didn't necessarily wind up being lucrative, like you said, you built this confidence in yourself by saying, well, I think I can solve this problem.
Absolutely.
And, I really relate to that. And that's kind of like what I'm hoping to share with our viewers today is basically styles of learning and how we approach learning. And, on this path, providing ourselves with more freedom in life, and also providing our families and our friends with the opportunity to reach a different level of freedom. And the more that we can figure things out on our own, whether that be philosophy ideas or physical world problems, the more we become independent, self-sufficient, and interconnected with each other. And so, like, there's been a lot of examples in my life. I went into carpentry because I pretty much rejected school. Like you were saying, I was like, I've been in school for almost 16 years. I'm done with being in school. And I never did well with the authoritarian-based system. And I didn't understand at that point in my life what it was that was so reprehensible to me, that I had so much resistance against. Now looking back, I understand it. It was because
Right.
I didn't ever feel like anyone had the right to tell me I'm the authority, you must listen. And even down to like when I go to the bathroom, or where I stand, or whether I stand in a line, or whether I sit in a particular seat, like really detailed stuff where people are like kind of like forcing me into a mold that I didn't want to be part of. So
Yeah, and all of those
you know,
things are things that they wanted you to stop doing because they don't work in that system. But for the things that we're talking about, they're exactly the types of things you need to be able to do.
right, like ask bigger questions. And in fact, I was always a class clown. And I would say more than 50% of the time, if not 75% of the time, I wasn't always saying what I was saying just to get attention. I mean, I was looking for attention, but I was a lot of times just asking a question that was in my head. And the teacher would take offense to it because a lot of the kids would laugh or get excited because I'm asking a question that sort of blows the walls off of where they were going with things. And they couldn't deal with that. So they would just kick me out of the classroom. But, a lot of times I was just wondering or thinking,
Yeah.
and that school system
That's the problem there, Chris. You
doesn't
gotta
have
stop
space.
that thinking.
Yeah, like what was your school experience? I know like we've both been exposed to John Taylor Gatto and Richard's teachings about what school does to us. I'd like to hear a little bit about your experience and how you think that can help other people.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had some experiences that sound similar to you as far as I can think of one teacher in particular in class I almost got kicked out of because I was being the class clown. And I don't know what it was. I just couldn't help myself. Open my mouth sometimes, just stuff would come out. And it's funny because that teacher was like, out of all the teachers I had, he was one of the best out of every teacher I had. And I learned the most from him. He was he was straight out of college and kind of an idealist, and really made me work harder than any other teacher. And I actually that was my Spanish teacher. And I took 4 years of Spanish in high school, and when went into community college, I was able to start out in second year Spanish because I'd already taken 4 years in high school. But like that was second year Spanish in high school that I took from him. And I learned more in that class than all the other Spanish classes combined. It's really kind of an interesting thing. And he was that was an unusual experience with teachers. I had a few of those that stood out that kind of like, I don't know, it was interesting. Like they recognized something in me and were very helpful. And there were other ones that kind of, I guess maybe it was a threat or something, and the experience was more like what you were describing. But somehow he kind of like me and him ended up bonding, and I don't know, it was just a really cool experience. That is unusual with teachers, I would say. I just had a few that were like that, I guess, that kind of stood out, but a lot of them were really awful too. Like it was kind of a mix, but somehow, I don't know, I was able to do pretty good in school without really trying that hard.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I would get pretty good grades. I even got through high school with like 3 point something,
Right.
but by the time it got to like junior, senior year, I pretty much didn't care anymore. I was just leaving when I wanted to. I was just sick of it, sick of people trying to shove ideas down my throat that from my point of view, I saw a lot of immaturity in the teachers. And really
Yeah.
one of
Oh,
the things that
definitely.
really bugged me about it was just everything was so materialistic. And like they started pushing on us in junior year, like, oh, you're going to go to college. You have to go to college. Or, it's basically like the story they're telling is you're either going to go to college or you're going to wind up working at McDonald's or be in jail. And those
Right.
were basically the options. And I was like, not buying that, And so
Yeah.
I did not go to college, not because I couldn't have. I mean, I probably could have got some scholarships. We were, like you're saying, like in that level, we were just above the poverty level. We made enough money to where we couldn't get
Right.
the discounts and the free money. But, I'm sure if I would have worked really hard on finding scholarships, I probably could have got myself into college, but I didn't want to because like I didn't know what I wanted to do yet with my life.
Right.
I had so
Yeah.
many questions. I was so curious. I wanted to travel. I wanted to meet people. So I wound up joining a volunteer service. So even at that time, like, I don't know how many adults were like looking down on me that were scornful, but I was like,
Mm.
hey, I'm a human being. I get to make my own decision. I don't want to go to college right now. I just got done with all that school. I'm going to do something different. And looking back, I probably could have made more money, if I went into engineering and stuff. But I'm a pretty happy person, and I have a lot of good stories to tell of all the stuff I learned on those journeys, driving across the country, doing different jobs, learning different things. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade that decision for anything.
Yeah. Something that you said reminded me of, like when I first started going out on my own, like as a contractor, there was a lot of people around me that would be like, "You sure you want to do that? That's a lot of risk or whatever." Like something that I had to learn to deal with pretty early on is just like the majority of people, will be scared. Like they're scared of doing these things on their own. So when you talk about doing them, they're going to be like projecting that onto you. And that's just a thing that you have to learn to kind of maneuver. And, I think, if I could do it over again, knowing what I know now, if I could find a group like Autonomy to help me get through that kind of stuff, I think, I probably could have progressed a lot faster. But you definitely have people that are very afraid of leaving that, paycheck that will be very vocal about how you shouldn't be doing that type of thing, because that implies that they could be doing it too.
Yeah, and it's a very fear-based system that
Hmm.
we've been born into, and then the whole school system, super like instructional based. I want to point. I'll share the link when I get a chance. Maybe when we stream this. I recently put out a YouTube video, and I was talking about the difference of people that think conceptually versus people that want to be told what to do instructionally.
Hmm.
And I think my recognition, this is in John Taylor Gatto's work, and Richard Grove talks about some of the problems with schooling and education system is that there's systems that have been created purposefully to kind of numb the brain and to condition people into through trauma into just getting used to that instructional way of thinking. Like, just tell me the next thing.
Right.
You just always look to the authority to
Yeah.
get the answer rather than what's more difficult. It's like looking at a blank page when you want to write a story. It's like kind of scary
Right.
to have to just go in your own mind and be like, well, I have to create the parameters. I have to think about what needs to get done. I have to think about the big picture. I have to think about the small picture. It's a lot to take in. So, I mean, how can we like advice, tips, encouragement to people that are maybe stuck in a 9-to-5 job that want to work towards a more freedom-based freelancing lifestyle? What kind of tips or hints or advice would you give?
Um, I would say, like, I think a lot of people that ask me stuff that are like, I would say, the people that you just described, maybe they're interested, like I want to do that, but they'd have no idea what it means, right? And I guess the tendency is for people to think that it's just like an overnight thing, like you just flip a switch and I'm going to go be a businessman or whatever now. but it really is not that way at all. They're like these small incremental things that you learn over time. And that's what I was talking about really with finding a group like Autonomy. If you can find someone to mentor you that's already experienced a lot of these things, you can really shave a lot of time off, because otherwise you basically are on your own with a lot of people telling you you're crazy for doing it. And you just got to learn to develop thick skin to be able to get through that, you know? But, you know, I guess I would say the main thing I'm saying is start small. Like, just start somewhere. Like, I mean, we haven't really talked, I guess, besides doing, I don't know if this is the right direction to take this right now. I'm sorry. But besides the drafting endeavors, like when I was working for fire sprinkler contractors, I kind of felt that like it wouldn't make sense for me to work for multiple fire sprinkler contractors, because I just figured that they were all a little bit unscrupulous. And so if I worked for multiple, that would be just difficult working with a whole bunch of unscrupulous people. So I was like, okay, well, this is the problem I had, is like a lot of them wouldn't be able to pay in a timely manner, right? And so rather than going and getting other clients, I started other businesses, because it's like, okay, well, this is enough money to get by. It's just, I never know when I'm going to get paid. So I started other little entrepreneurial endeavors. And for 20 years, you know, my wife and I have been doing different side hustles on top of that to, you know, to supplement what we're doing. And we've been learning all the way along with that. But
Oh
like,
man, I think that's a beautiful side direction to go. It's not side; it's right in the current of what we're talking about. Because the truth is, like, I don't want to mislead listeners. Like, it's not an easy jump, especially if you are fully embedded in
right,
a 9 to 5 job and you, oh, I want to become a freelancer. I want to work for myself. A lot of people start a business that fails within the first year or two. And most ideas we get don't pan out the way we thought they do. It works
right,
in our imagination, but then in the practical world, there's hangups or things we didn't occur to, or an aspect of our personality that just doesn't fit well. You know, like I'm not real great with like technical details when it comes to charting out money, you know, and that's been one of the drawbacks of the businesses I've started, is like I didn't do a careful enough job of figuring everything out real specifically and putting it on a graph, you know, like I should have. And we learn these lessons by trying and experimenting. And so I think the advice to people out there is don't try to bite off the whole problem at once. You kind of
yeah,
got to get your feet wet in some different things. Like you said, find some mentors, find some advice, and find what really drives your heart and your passion that you feel comfortable putting energy into. Because realistically, if you're already working a full-time job or you already have kids, you only have so much time in the evenings and the weekends to really like work and learn something new. And so it's got to be kind of incremental, little by little. If you do it all at once, you take too big of a risk. And so there's always
right.
a balance of risk versus gain, right?
Yes. And like, you definitely shouldn't quit your day job. But there are some things, you know, until you got enough money coming in, right? But oh man, I'm sorry, I just totally lost it.
No, that's okay. You know, as I was remembering, there was one day when I kind of went through this two big times in my life. At one time, I was able to quit my full-time job, and I did it the way you're not supposed to. I just quit it cold turkey and started trying to start my own business. And I was selling stuff on Amazon, and I was selling stuff on Craigslist out of my garage and doing handyman work. And I remember one day where I was like so excited. I was like, I made money in 5 different ways today.
Yeah,
And I was so proud of that. But I got to say, like, from that point, it didn't just build and build and build. I got to the point where I realized, like, oh, I think I better go back to a full-time job for a while. And I might even still have to do that again coming up, depending on how things go. It's an ongoing process of building these blocks, these foundational blocks that give us a little bit of leverage, right?
yeah, you just keep stacking skills, right? And then eventually it's like you're pushing this thing up a hill, And I mean, it feels like, it gets, we talked about this the other day. If you have, you start a business, life, that can be hard on the front end, but easier on the back end. But working for somebody else, I mean, or just not doing anything on your own. It's easy, right? To just be lazy and do nothing. But when you get old on the back end, it's real hard. So either way you do it, it's going to be hard. You might as well do the one that's on the, hard on the front, and the back end is easy, because doing the hard part when you're old age is not fun, right? And that's what a lot of people end up doing under this system that we're set up in.
Yeah, and I think it has a lot to do with value, how you value your time too. A good example is when I worked at the courthouse as a maintenance man. That was a job I quit cold turkey. It's an evil place, evil place. The more I was there, the more I came to recognize that. But like I saw several people that had been working for like the county with these solid county jobs, where they're getting benefits and everything for 30, 40, 50 years of their life, like a lot of years they'd put in, and they were just waiting for this retirement day. And there were several people that died or got really sick within a month or two of that retirement date.
Yeah.
So they've been kind of pushing back all these things they wanted to do in life till retirement. And then by the time they finally got there, whatever happened, their body fell apart and it couldn't even do it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's always true. I know other people that are living real happy on their retirement right now, and so glad they have all this money in these accounts, but they spent 20, 30 years of doing something they really did not love or weren't passionate about. And so they traded like slavery in a way for this opportunity to have a certain amount of freedom when you're old. And to me, that trade has never been worth it. I'd rather live my life right now. And even if there are certain consequences when I'm older, I mean, what do you value, right?
Yeah, I think there's a balance, right?
Being alive?
Right, totally. Yeah, I don't want to, like I put work on my business, but I would need to be balanced. I don't want to overdo it. But that's one of the things that it's actually a lot easier when you have a business, man. One of the things that drove me crazy when I was working jobs was just thinking about all the time, like sitting in the car commuting. I was just like, what am I doing? I could be at home with my family right now. Like I was working a job somewhere, say, making what, $20 an hour, $25 an hour, whatever it was. But it's an hour and a half to get there, maybe 2.5 hours in traffic in the afternoons. Like I've had jobs like that. And it's like, okay, so how much am I really making per hour on a day that I end up stuck in traffic for 4 hours? And what am I doing?
Imagine how that adds up through a whole lifetime. I've thought about that. I've met people that have commuted an hour, 2 hours per day or more for many, many years. Imagine if you added up all those hours, that'd be like 10 years of your life just driving back and forth.
Right. Well, so when I quit that place where I had that crazy commute, that was about 6 months I was there. That's all I could stand it. But, one of the things I was telling me was like, well, man, even if I have to work 4 extra hours on my own business every day, at least I'm at home with my family. You know what I mean? Like what's the big deal? And I don't have to drive anywhere. I don't have to worry about maintaining my car. There's so many things, just like when you're working someplace at a job, just the expense of how you eat lunch every day is a huge thing for a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Huge. I mean, a sandwich when you go out to eat is like $8 minimum, 10. Now it's 10 or 12 a lot of times.
Yeah.
Every day I would see people doing that. Like I was one who'd actually bring my lunch to the job site pretty regularly, because I was just like, I'm not going to, not only that, but a lot of guys I would work with, we would only take half an hour lunch most of the time. They'd drive off, go buy something to eat, come back. It's like, dude, break's almost over. You're just opening your sandwich and you just spent like $20.
Yeah.
The gas, and I'm already done eating and ready to go back to work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I had the same type of thing. I worked, so I guess I didn't really get into, but one of the things, I always worked for small companies when I was working for sprinkler companies. And so I actually worked in the field too. Um, the first company I worked for was union, and so I couldn't, but I worked for a non-union company. If it was slow in the office, I would just go install. I just was willing to do whatever it took, and I was curious. And most people, other people that were there doing the same type of thing would be like, okay, there's no work in the office, I'm going home. And I would be like, well, what is there to do? I don't mind doing that, whatever. Uh, that kind of led me a lot of times. That's over the years. I was thinking about something you just said that last. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought here, but something about what you said in that last train of thought that you had um, made me think about like when I was, 20 years ago and first married and with my young family trying to figure this out. One of the things that I thought was, well, I always have to have a place to live and a car to get around, either to get to work or to get us to the grocery store or whatever. But no matter what, in this modern society, you can't get away from those two things, basically, right? So I would do anything to pursue learning in those two areas. So, like, if work was slow and there wasn't work in the field where I was at, that wasn't an option. I had a buddy who was a finish carpenter, and I would go work with him, and he taught me how to like hang doors and windows and trim out doors and windows. And we used to put on Mount Hood these like knotty pine tongue and groove ceilings in these $1 million cabins, stuff like that. And then like cars, I would always work on my own car because I couldn't fathom paying somebody. We're told to stay in our own lane. You shouldn't do that, but it just didn't make any sense to me. I couldn't afford to pay somebody else when I'm only making, especially when I was real young, only making like $10 an hour. There's no way I'm paying some mechanic $75 an hour. you know, Sounds like a great opportunity to learn to me. And so I basically, I'm at a weird point now where, like, I know how to do everything. I've rebuilt engines. I do all the maintenance on my vehicles, but I'm starting to have my business. I have to focus on not doing certain things like that anymore. So that's like a weird new dynamic where I got to think about where my time is worth spent somewhere more and paying somebody to do. That's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is like when you're first starting out, there's all of these things that you can stack skills in. And it's like, yeah, I didn't ever, you're not going to become a mechanic, but if you learn to change your own brakes and save $500 every time that comes up, and those skills just keep stacking. When you don't have a job, but you need your brakes fixed, you can do it. Or when you're low on work and your buddy needs his brake fixed and he doesn't have any money or whatever, he can buy the case of beer and the brakes, and then next time you need help with something, he can help you out or whatever, and that's
Dude,
like,
that aspect is huge too. I mean, I feel like that's something I want to highlight for people is it doesn't mean you particularly need to learn every one of these things. I mean, learning is fun. Okay. For
mm-hmm,
one thing, it feels good to learn something new. And like you're saying, I remember on my house, there were a lot of things I wanted to learn that I could apply at work, but I hadn't really done yet. And like, especially in construction or carpentry, they'll say, well, have you ever built stairs? Or have you ever hung a door? And if
mm-hmm,
your answer is just like, no, then they just look over to the next guy. Have you ever, you know what I mean? But if
mm-hmm,
your answer is like, yeah, I've helped do that twice, then they're like, okay, do you think you can handle this? Yeah, I can. I can get my mind around it. Okay, come on. And so like I wanted to get some of these skills on my hands and in my mind.
mm-hmm,
So I had my own house to work on that we purchased and well, we owed. Let me put it that way.
right.
Never actually owned it. We owed it. But like I took apart the stairs and rebuilt them myself, and then I wanted to do tile in the bathroom. And I had a friend who I worked with that I knew did tile work. And just like you're saying, I'm like, dude, I'll buy you a 6-pack of beer and give you $30 or something.
Right.
He even charged me. He just drank the beer. If you just come get me started, and he just spent like an hour and a half with me, kind of shooting the shit, being like, okay, here's how we snap a couple lines. So we know that our tiles end up evenly on both sides, type of thing. And once he got me going, I was golden. He showed me how to mix the mortar and stuff. And I was off and running. And, later on, he needed my help with something, and I came and helped him for a couple beers or whatever. So that's how the world can move. That's how we can get things done. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. I just got
no. Made me think of a couple of points. One thing that is, are you familiar with Curtis Stone?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Urban, it used to be Urban Gardener. We changed it, right? It's not that anymore. It's like Off Grid with Curtis Stone, but he talks about often is it the 7 forms of capital, I believe, where there's more than just money is capital, and that's kind of like what we're talking about, right? Where just having these skills and being able to exchange them with friends and stuff is, in some ways, worth much more than the money.
Right. Well, and then imagine if there's something, apocalyptic that happens,
exactly.
All money stops being valuable here in the States, or all the power shuts off or something. Then, it doesn't matter how well you've prepped. I've thought about this before. Like, you could have an underground basement and a bunch of food stored and stuff, but if you don't have any friends, you don't have any connections to other people, you're still going to be in a really tight spot. The best you can have going for you is a lot of connections with other people, so that you can trade valuable things. You're not going to have everything self-contained, right?
Right. And another thing that I was thinking along with that, I think that conversation sparked a thought in my mind. When people, we were talking about advice for people that wanting to learn these skills and just starting out. The school system, makes you think, stay in your lane. You can't, that's not for you. What I'm actually kind of curious if you found this to be true, but what I found to be true is that everything relates in ways that they don't want you to know. Because if you realized how much it related, you'd realize how it's not that hard to learn new things, because it relates to other things you know. And as you learn more, it just becomes easier and easier to learn. I don't know. Have you found that?
Oh, that's a beautiful point, Colby. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's like cross-training, right? What they call cross-training. When you learn one skill, the knowledge you gain applies to another skill. And so, like, we see it in the trades a lot. I've met plumbers, electricians, tile guys. They all know a little bit about each other's trade, because we bump shoulders, we rub shoulders, and there's a lot of similarities.
Right.
The different tools, almost every tool you can think of. You usually don't want to go full force with any tool. Like, you don't want to run it as fast as it can go and just push as hard as you can. Something will usually break. There's you have to kind of learn to feel the material you're working with and kind of see it inside your mind. And that applies across the board, and that applies to thinking too, like hermetic truths, correspondence, as above, so below. Once you, you don't even have to master a skill, just learning about a skill in the context of how it's used, that knowledge will apply to more and more things. So, the mind is a tool also that needs to be exercised, right? And when we're learning, it fires neurons in a different way that as when we're just taking in instructions or following orders.
Right. Yeah, that's dangerous information, Chris.
Well, how about applying this same kind of thing to health? You just gave me some good recent advice, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But how has being a self-learner, autodidactic, jack of all trades kind of guy applied to your process of handling your own health problems and such?
Yeah, that is an interesting thing, actually. one of the challenges with self-employment is, of course, health insurance, right? And that's one thing we've like Oregon has a pretty good, pretty interesting health insurance program that we pretty much can always get health insurance for our children at a affordable rate, and it's usually free, but we can always get it even if we have to pay a minimal fee. It's not bad. But it basically, because our income is not, it can fluctuate quite a bit. We may get a big check that we have to live on for a little bit, but then we may not get any money for a period of time just because of the different types of work we're doing and whatnot, And so we may get on, it's called the Oregon Health Plan. We may get on because we haven't gotten paid for a month and a half, and it makes it look on paper like we're, not making any money. So we get on Oregon Health Plan, and then the next time we get kicked off because we got a bunch of money, and then we don't qualify anymore. And so, that we kind of just keep going off and on that. That's for 20 years. It's been that way. But then, so then how do you deal with it when you don't have insurance? There's, we have bought it before, but in my experience, and this is something that is really hard, I think, for people when they're thinking about going on their own. It's like such this psychological barrier that you have to have insurance. But my personal real life experience over the last 20 years is that we have always done financially better when we have medical issues without insurance than if we have insurance. It costs us more money when we have insurance, even if it's free. And well, the Oregon Health Plan is kind of unusual because they just cover everything. But so it's just good. It's, but that's not like really a reasonable thing to compare to because there's not a thing on the market like that you can really buy. But as far as insurance from an employer or insurance that we've purchased on the marketplace, every time we've had a health problem in our family, if we had insurance, it costs us more money than if we had no health insurance. And that is because when you have no health insurance, you are in complete control of the process of being able to negotiate the fees with the doctor. And when you have health insurance, the fees are already pre-negotiated and it can't be changed. And so whatever your deductible, usually we would buy cheap health insurance and have a high deductible. And so we'd have to pay this out-of-pocket deductible. Well, when you don't have insurance and you call, every time I've called up a doctor and negotiate with them, they basically just make it affordable for you. Like they just knock off like at least 90%, like pretty much automatically. They just work with you. I don't know how. They're just easy to work with. But as soon as you have insurance, then you're out of luck. It's already in a contract, and there's no negotiation possible.
Well, and in my personal experience, now I've been lucky in a lot of ways in that my body, I got a pretty cool body. It works pretty well, and I think my dad did a pretty good job of working towards feeding us healthy food. And so I was kind of granted a pretty decent foundational start. But, I've had times in my life where I've kind of abused my body in different ways and, start having particular problems. And I would say, like, over the years, there's only been once or twice where I've gone to a doctor or a hospital. And even those times, the way it's panned out, there's solutions I could have solved on my own. Or after seeing them, I figured out how to solve the problem on my own. And we live in this amazing time where there's this like infinite of information available on the internet. When I was a kid, we had the encyclopedia, and that was, or you could go to the library, and that you could solve a lot that way too, and people did. And then I thought about all through time, all through history, whether it was tribes, indigenous people, there was always shamans, and people managed to deal with these things. Our bodies, our health, self-healing machines. Our body, all it really wants to do is recuperate and heal itself. And so, like, I think a lot of that can be done from home and talking to other people and getting information from other people that have gone through the same problems. And the more that we're able to do that, not only are we prepared for the possible outcomes like I described, a dark future, but we don't have to waste so much money and time and be subservient to the system that's just going to, as soon as you go in there, it's like submit, submit, submit. I actually had one of the last times I had to go in for a physical, they were arguing with me about what my name is. Like I wanted to just sign my name the way I always did, but they said, no, you have to use your full name. And I go, but that's not really the way I use my name. They're like, well, that's the way it is on our other paperwork, so that's the way we need you to sign. I'm like, so you're telling me that you know my name better than I do? I mean, stupid thing, but
yeah.
Like the kind of treatment you're getting in these places. And then like you'll sit in front of the doctor and he's like this, looking at the computer.
Yeah.
Okay, and what are your problems? Okay. Yeah. You get about 30 seconds of his eyeballs on you.
Yeah, if that, right?
7 minutes that they spend with you. And then they want to 99% of the time just hand you a piece of paper with some prescriptions on it. And I've never wanted to get stuck on prescriptions. I've used them a few times, but like I would say we don't need them for the most part. Like there's a way, there's always another way. I mean, has your experience confirmed that? Or
yeah, I mean, I would say that's like the other half is that I would say we have taken more responsibility for our health than we probably would have done otherwise. There's probably situations where we'd be like, if we just had insurance, we probably would have been lazy about certain things just because we felt like we could because we had insurance and weren't worried about if we had a little bit of health problems or something. And it's been a little bit of a push once in a while, I guess, to make me feel like I need to take better care of myself health-wise, what I'm eating, if I'm exercising regularly, those types of things. And I don't, always do as good as I feel like I should do, just like everybody. But I do feel like it's probably helped push me a little bit more in the right direction. Just having the responsibility of having to take care of those things, right?
Absolutely. Recently I was having like some tooth pain and I was getting pretty nervous about it. If I was worried maybe an abscess was forming, and it's coming at a really bad time, where I was kind of low on money and I didn't have a lot of work coming in. And I was really starting to stress it out. And then I talked to you and I talked to this other woman that I do some handyman work for. And you both gave me some advice with gargling with garlic and then the coconut oil. What do you call that? Where you rinse it in your
Oil
mouth?
pulling.
Oil pulling. And I've been doing that regularly since it was taught to me. And I did the garlic thing. And I don't know, I might still have to go see a dentist, but right now I'm good. It doesn't hurt. And I got past that really stressful moment and I was able to get some work and get some money coming in. And so, like, I don't want to tell people that going out on your own and taking responsibility for your own life is easy. It's scary sometimes. Sometimes you do feel like, dang, I don't know how I'm going to bring in my next buck. I don't know how I'm going to pay this next bill. But if you're attentive and it forces you to focus sometimes, and it forces you to learn things you might not have learned otherwise. And afterward, you're super proud. And then you go into new situations. And like we were saying, you apply the new skill.
Yeah, you were scared initially, but once you learn it, you're empowered, right? It's like now nothing scares you. It's like, okay, well, we know how to deal with this.
Like what, 9 years ago, I was having this like breathing problem that was it was starting to be like changing my life. I was feeling like, I can't go on like this. I was getting so much like snot and phlegm. I couldn't breathe right. And that was what really pushed me into getting more serious about Wim Hof breathing. And I do Wim Hof breathing religiously every morning,
Nice.
4 rounds, and usually one at night. And I got in the pool this morning, and did my little cold dip.
Awesome.
And, I'm not saying it's like the ultimate solution to all health problems, but it has helped me in a major, major life-changing way. And so I always try to share it with other people because it changed my life. It made me feel like, oh, I got a way to deal with this problem. And now that breathing problem is not even a thing,
That's awesome.
There's a lot of possibility out there to grow. Okay, so we got a few minutes left. We're getting close to an hour. We've talked about education and work and health. But let's just kind of focus a little bit before we close up on thinking for yourself, and free thinking, out of the box thinking, and symbols. Like, how does this have to do with freedom and sovereignty? Or, how has it aided you, the Renaissance man of many talents.
Yeah. I've always, I guess, pursued my curiosity, and I just figured, I don't know if this is the right direction, what you're talking about, but I always just figured, like, what do I have to lose? Like, I'm either going to learn how to do it, or I'm going to learn it's something I don't want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I've had
I think a lot of people deal with the fear of rejection or the fear of failure. And so a lot of people I've met, they don't want to start something if they don't know that they can.
Yeah. Okay. So part of what I had, which I can't recommend this, but I have to say, when I was a young person, I was, I was kind of driven to not be like someone in my family, I guess. I don't want to call anybody out, but I didn't want to end up like this person or how I felt this person was. And that was really kind of drove me as a young person with a lot of this stuff. At this point, I'm in my 40s and it all kind of seems natural. I don't know any other way to live. But when I was a young man going out on my own and people telling me, you can't do it like this, I turned that into this drive to how I'm going to figure, like, why can't I do it like this? I'm going to figure this out, well, it kind of reminds me, when I was a younger, more arrogant person discovering things like this, I didn't really necessarily know how to like filter myself in conversations and whatnot, and people would come up against these roadblocks that they have in conversation, and I would just be like, who the F told you that? It's like, what? Like, they just say things that are like these societal, things that we are told that I don't know where they come from, but it's just like, what? Who told you? Like, they're not thinking. Like, we're so programmed to not think. I guess, I don't know. But I was like determined, like the person that I'm talking about, my family, I felt like they, it was almost like it irritated them if we were having a conversation and I made them think. And I just didn't want to be anything like that, and it was just really driven. Like, I don't know. I think I'm really kind of going off topic here.
No, man, you just hit the ball right out of the park. I've been through that feeling so many times. It's like, here's an example. Like there's something I don't completely understand, right? Like we're looking at a machine, like on a family trip, right? And in a museum or something. And I start wondering, like, I wonder how that machine works.
Yeah.
And then I see something about it. I'm like, oh, look, it has a pipe going out of it. I wonder if that's maybe the exhaust. And then I go outside the building and I look and I'm like, oh, look, there's hot air coming out of it. I think they must have a fan in that machine, and I would start trying to draw conclusions, and we'd be driving home and I'd be like, you know what? I think maybe the way that works, and I would start drawing theories and ideas. And my ex-wife did not like that type of thinking. She would shut it down. She'd be like, you don't know. Why are you talking about something you don't know? And I've seen this type, and, she's a very intelligent person. I'm not talking her down at all, but I've been through this dynamic so many times where it's even, I see it like on our podcasts or on conversations on like a YouTube video or something, where people always want to know, like, oh, where did you get that information from? Who said that? And it's because they want the credibility of, oh, that authority is one we should be listening to, or that one we should not. It's authority-based decision making, and always basing something off of some expert.
Right.
And I'm not saying that people that have mastery in certain fields don't deserve respect, and we shouldn't look at them and learn from them. But we have to be able to question everything and anything. And when you have the ability to do that, and the hubris almost to do that, and the curiosity, got my Curious George. He's like my lifetime avatar, because it's like that curiosity part of myself has led me to so many awesome interactions and realizations, and recognizing things on different levels, that I want to encourage it and share it with other people. I don't want other people to be stuck in a box inside of our own mind, which is really what happens.
Something about what you were saying made me think about one of the things, like I've always enjoyed, I just have like this insatiable curiosity about things, want to know how things work. And I don't know, I'm kind of like that way about business process and stuff now too, because I'm into like making my business work. And so I'm like, well, how do they make, how does that work? How are they able to make this happen? Just, which most people are not thinking about how businesses work. They're thinking about, how do they get to their next,
squeeze the money out of it.
Yeah, get to the next TV show that I want to watch or whatever. Man, and I totally lost where I was even going with this. I'm sorry. What were we talking about?
Like, where do people get the question to ask, like, how does this work? And why does it work? Trying to understand the context of, how we get past those walls. I think here's the thing I'm trying to get to bridge is that, like, one thing I've realized over and over in my own self, the worst trap that keeps me from doing better, like financially, for instance, is my own self-limiting thought.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So we create a trap in our own mind, Yeah,
and it's still like, I think we've had several conversations about this, about how there's things that like I've been doing for 20 years, but it's still a struggle, but it's like, it gets a little bit easier each time you keep doing, at least, well, I've done it in the past. And so it has the potential to be successful, but sometimes it still can be hard to start something, like maybe cold calling clients or whatever, like it's just, no matter how many successful times you've done something, especially because of this world that we live in, it's going to be hard to remember that, oh yeah, I can do this.
Yeah. And that's where it really helps, I think, to have friends and people to encourage us, or to get that outside perspective. Call somebody who is going to give the right advice. Don't call the naysayer, realist, I mean, it is both. You want both people in your life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like you just want to, know that about them and what you're getting, like that's good to have some people that are always telling you, no, you can't do it, because then you can ask them, and, you should consider what they're saying, but don't let it stop you.
Absolutely. Oh, I remember there was one other thing you said that kind of put a light on in my mind, and you were talking about how you kind of like identify um, with the guy that is curious and wants to ask questions. Like that's become part of who you are. And we always talk, in the One Great Work about the self work and learning to know thyself. The
Hmm.
oldest adage and the best piece of wisdom is to learn yourself. And how else do you do that? By experimenting and pushing yourself a little bit outside of your comfort zone.
Right.
So the more you can do that in your life is sort of push that comfort zone. And you want to learn to identify. That's why I like Curious George as an archetype symbol, is like the more you identify with being someone who's a go-getter, I identify with someone who is working towards self-discipline, the more that it's easy to do those actions that fit into that. And even those
Right.
books like about good habits and stuff, Atomic Habits and High Performance Habits, both those books, they talk about this idea of your ego identification and what you identify yourself with being.
Yeah, that's good.
So like I think it's important we tell ourselves a good story and encourage ourselves, to
Yeah, totally. And you know, I think that along with that, was we're trying to find other like-minded individuals to help each other along through this process. Like we're trying to help each other out. Like we have kind of a responsibility to build each other up, I feel. You know what I mean? Like because it does, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but uh
there is
we're talking about this light path that we're getting on, right? And there's so much oppression in the society we live in of people being, taught to fear everything. And so we really have to work hard to help lift people up out of this because people are scared, man. You know?
absolutely. And like have you ever walked down a trail with some people and the person in front of you like pushes a tree limb aside and then just walk by and let it go and it
Right.
whips you in the face?
Right.
It's like that's not the way we want to walk down the trail.
Right.
When you push the thing aside, you've just gained some knowledge. Oh, this is in the way. So then you stop and look back and be like, watch out, guys, or
Yeah.
you step on in some poop or there's a snake in the trail. The right thing to do, you do have a responsibility to yell at the people down the trail and be like, hey guys, there's a rattlesnake right here. Watch out, or whatever.
Right.
Like that's not just an option. We have a responsibility as humans to recognize we're part of the same tribe as humans and help each other out. That's
Right.
that's what being good is, and that's what creating community and freedom is all about. And our society is trying to break that up. The powers that be,
Right.
whoever it is, archons, are trying to destroy our sense of cohesiveness and fragment us so that we don't work together. Like, oh, you're one of those heteros, or you're one of those white guys, or you're one of those. It's like always trying to categorize, stereotype people so that we don't identify with each other as being all part of this same family, right?
Right. Yeah, we can't work together that way.
Yeah. So yeah, I really appreciate getting to know you and your attitude and the values that we've been trading back and forth. I'm really excited about your business, MCAD, doing the fire sprinkler work. And if people are curious to check that out, go to www.mcadproductions.com or the YouTube page you see on Colby's thing, youtube.com at MCAD Productions. Any other last words or things you want to leave the audience with before we end this discussion, Colby?
Oh man, I wish I had something profound to say, but I look forward to having more conversations, expanding this topic. I think we got a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, there's so much to learn and so much to teach, and it's a beautiful process when we're all on it together. So, yeah, I've been really enjoying the chat. People that are showing up to the podcast and sharing their thoughts and ideas in the chat. It makes it, kind of shows that we're building this community here. And Colby's been showing up most Thursdays and contributing in that way. So I want to say I really appreciate that to folks. And, the End Evil podcast does need your help. If you can go to the donate page and make a small donation, that would be much appreciated. It takes a lot of resources to keep this thing going. And I appreciate those people who would take a minute to do that, or just even subscribe to the channel, share the videos with other people. We're trying to help people. I'm trying to spread a better future for everybody. And it's not a personal gain. It's what's best for all of us type of thing. So join in the great work and get involved. If someone wants to reach out to me personally, maybe you're getting started on your own idea or your own business and you just need someone to talk to about it. I'm opening some windows for doing consultation, and I'm willing to do a free 45-minute session with you if we haven't met yet. And then after that, it's something I'm going to charge for the time, because it's extremely valuable to have someone who will just sit and listen to you for an hour and reflect back what you're saying and help you clarify what your vision. And we all need to figure out our inner purpose and our passion and our vision. And when we do that, then it makes it so much easier to go forward with our plans. So those are the last things I wanted to pop out. Thanks, Colby, for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate your presence.
And I appreciate all the kind things you've said. I've really enjoyed working with you as well.
Right on. All right, folks, thanks for coming. If you want to reach out to me, my email address I'll put in the comments, or you can find it on endevil.life. Have a wonderful day. Go out and get them. Practice your skills, and we'll work towards a better world.